What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor, and I'm so grateful for my subscribers, the supportive comments, everybody's support. If this is your first time watching one of my videos on this channel, I share my personal recovery journey. I share what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me. I share my experiences I had with the 12 steps. I share all types of different suggestions, tools, and resources that have helped me in my own healing journey in hopes that it can help someone else. This video is going to focus on my personal experience with steps 6 and 7 of Alcoholics Anonymous. And see, the thing is that all 12-step programs have the same steps. They just replace certain words. And I speak about Alcoholics Anonymous. I speak about Alcoholics Anonymous because that is the program I started in. I also attend Emotions Anonymous from time to time, and I've done a little bit of step work in that 12-step program, but I'm not as familiar with it as I am with Alcoholics Anonymous. So all 12-step programs have the same 12 steps, just different reading materials and different literature. So it says steps 6 and 7. Step 6, ask God to remove all these defects of character. And 7 states, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Now, for me, and this is my personal experience, and I share this in a lot of my other videos, is the number one thing that I used as an excuse of why AA wouldn't work for me was the God concept. I would hear the word God and I would get so angry and I would get so pissed off, and I was just so tired of repetitively hearing about the whole God thing and people's higher powers and things like that, that I would leave. And 3 years ago, I came into recovery and I told myself, if I want my program to work and if I want something to change, then I need to figure out a way to make it work. And so I had to do a lot of self-reflection, and I had to do a lot of reaching within myself to figure out why I was so angry at a God I didn't believe in. And I have another video on my experience with step 3, and also I have another video about my experience with the God concept that will go into further details on how I was able to truly overcome that part of my programming and conditioning due to my childhood upbringing. But right now I'm going to focus on what steps 6 and 7 look like for me and how it correlates with my recovery. I believe that I cannot just ask a power greater than myself to remove my anger. I cannot just ask a higher power to give me or provide me with the life skills that weren't taught to me. So for me, what steps 6 and 7 look like for my recovery has been learning how to communicate in a healthy way, learning how to regulate my emotions, learning how to have healthy relationships with other people and myself, learning how to pause. Meditation plays a large part in why I have the power and the ability to be able to pause and not be as impulsive as I was before I came into recovery. So for me, I do not believe that a higher power can remove my character defects, because that the character defects, which I prefer to say survival traits, that I have developed has been because of my childhood upbringing, my trauma, and my dysfunction. My character defects have been developed through observations and what I learned from my caregivers and other people that I chose to hang around in active addiction. So if these characteristics have been developed and learned through observation and through repetition, then I am responsible in learning new ways to cope with things. And there are times that for me, and the way that my recovery works and my spiritual connection to myself is that I had to learn to change the way I spoke to myself. So I'll give this for an example. Every day I become activated in something. Something happens in my life every day where I am triggered or activated, whatever word a person wants to use to explain emotions coming up, okay? And what recovery and what meditation has taught me, and being around people and hearing other people's experiences, strength and hope, it's taught me how to really pause and to self-reflect on why that activated me. Okay, so what also steps 6 and 7 look like for my recovery has been every time a situation has happened that has made me feel uncomfortable, or I could have responded differently than what I responded. I knew I was in the wrong. I knew I needed to make amends. Like, where I get a notebook, I self-reflect on the entire situation. Sometimes I would record it, like with my voice, and I would go back and listen to it, and I would take notes and self-reflect in that aspect. But every single situation I have been through where I could have responded differently, I've went back, I've self-reflected, I've looked at my part, I asked myself, what could I have done differently? What can I do differently next? And not only have I done that, but I've took the key words out of my self-reflection, and I've taught myself these life skills through research, through books, through counseling, whatever I could. Because, like, I truly believe if I have developed these character defects, then I can undevelop them by learning a new healthy response. And anger is my main character defect, and I'm sure it's everybody's, because anger is a natural emotion. Okay, and what I've learned about my anger is that I am responsible for the way I speak to myself when I'm angry. So for me, asking my higher power to remove my anger didn't work out for me, and this is just my experience. The only thing that has helped me when I am angry is talking to myself in my head by using positive self-talk. And when I say positive self-talk, I mean like telling myself, it's okay, Taylor, it's not that big of a deal. Or even if it is a big deal, like even when it is something that truly hurts me, I talk myself down. It's like I have to talk to that part of my brain that wants me to react, you know, and that has been my solution in calming myself down. So what works for me doesn't work for other people. Everything works differently for everyone, you know, and I had to find what worked for me. And I came across this extremely resourceful book by Griffin. And who Kevin Griffin is, he started off in 12-step programs, and he also got into Buddhism. And so he saw the correlation between 12-step programs and Buddhism, and he wrote several books. And I can't remember how I came across these books, but I am grateful that I did, because in his workbook, Buddhism and the 12-step workbook, you see how I said and? He's not replacing the 12 steps with Buddhism. But this workbook is so beneficial because it has so many insightful exercises to help a person really dive deep within themselves for each of the 12 steps. So, you know, I've been faithfully working out of this workbook, and you know, I've got 3 years in recovery, and I'm always coming across new books, new information. There are so many books out there besides the Alcoholics Anonymous book, okay, that breaks down the 12 steps. And he also has a book that explains his personal experience with the 12 steps in Buddhism, and he gives a lot of good suggestions and coping skills and techniques and perspectives. And his other book is called One Breath at a Time. So I have both his books, and he also created a daily reflection book, which I absolutely love. This daily reflection book, and it's called Buddhism and the 12 Steps. And you know, I'm grateful for other resources. I am grateful that let me rephrase this. I am grateful that people and ideas were put into my life to lead me to more than just Alcoholics Anonymous. I I am still actively involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. I do a lot of service work for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not dissing AA. I'm not hating on AA. I am beyond grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. But for me and how my recovery works is I needed to address my childhood dysfunction and what was actually underneath the depression, what was underneath the addiction. And I had to really reach within myself to understand where these survival traits were coming from. And by reaching within myself and identifying the things I wanted to change and that I needed to change, I was able to find resources to help me change them. And so for me, I continue to this day. Like, my main thing that I struggle with is communicating when I am upset or angry or hurt. And you cannot expect a person that has been impulsively communicating like the most unhealthiest way for 25 years to just work steps 1 through 12 in Alcoholics Anonymous, pray and meditate, and expect their communication style to change. And that's how I feel, because that has been my personal experience. I've had to read so many books. I've had to research, and one of my sponsors put me on ChatGPT, and I never realized like how resourceful ChatGPT was. Like, I can type in ChatGPT and say like the situation I'm dealing with, what's going on, and ask it like, how do I respond to this situation in a healthy way? And it will give me all different types of communication sentences that can help me learn how to communicate in a healthy way. And so ChatGPT is basically, to me, like a counselor, but on steroids. Like, yes, I'm in counseling. Me and my 9-year-old are in counseling together as a family. Like, and I see her counselor on the side. I've been in counseling for almost 10 years now, on and off. And each counselor brought me to a different level in my healing journey. So, like, I'm going to use this as an example. So I can't expect to work the 12 steps and have a spiritual awakening and pray and meditate and expect how to have different parenting skills when I wasn't taught how to be a healthy parent. So my point is that I have a parenting workbook. It's called Peaceful Parent, Happy Kid, or Peaceful Parent, Happy Kid. I'll put it in the description, by Laura Markham. I prefer to read and like study things like that when they're written by a doctor. In this workbook, this parenting workbook, I had for like 10 years, maybe less than that. And every time I would pick it up before I actually came to recovery 3 years ago, like one of the first exercises was writing a forgiveness letter to myself. And I just couldn't do it because it was too painful. But when I came to recovery 3 years ago and I built a foundation and started developing coping skills and learning how to like face my emotions, I found the book again and I started working out of it, and I work out it all the time. Like, the information in that parenting book was not taught to me growing up. So I cannot expect to pray and meditate and know the skills that are being taught to me in this parenting book. And that is my experiences with steps 6 and 7, is that I have to put in the work. I can't expect something larger than myself to just take away all my dysfunction. And so, there's so many things that I still choose to learn and to work on and to improve, because I can't just expect to read a couple of different communication styles, right? Like, I grew up in a home where saying I feel ... wasn't a thing. It was like, you're making me feel like this, you that, you that. Well, hearing that and your brain absorbing that, it's hard as an adult, and it has been extremely hard for me and challenging for me to get to a point to get you out my head and to actually start saying, I feel like this. And my point of saying this is because I've had to constantly, like, write on index cards different communication sentences and stuff, and read them over and over and over and over again out loud for my brain to absorb this information. So the 12 steps gave me the foundation that I lacked my entire life, and the people that I never have had growing up. It gave me a support system. The meetings, is where I learned a lot of my stuff. Hearing other people share their experience, strength, and hope. And a person that comes from the type of dysfunction I came from has to put in the work to overcome that dysfunction. And that's also where adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctions has helped me address my family dysfunction, because my mother didn't raise me. She raised me for the first 2 years. And my father and my mother fought all the time. My mother was a yeller. My mother never bonded with me. And that had an effect on my nervous system. And although my brain can't remember it, my nervous system can. And it also interfered with how I bonded with my children. And I didn't even realize all of this, of what I'm saying. And my mother was in and out of my life. I would see her like twice a year, but I picked on a lot of her characteristics. And I would have never became self-aware of that if I wouldn't have started Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctions. And it was very painful for me to become self-aware of that. But I've learned that pain is necessary for growth. I spent my whole life being unself-aware, being not self-aware of my behaviors, actions, and attitudes, running on autopilot, allowing my conditioning and my programming to control me, okay? And so that's what step 6 and 7 is also about. Breaking that old programming, breaking that conditioning, my childhood dysfunction. And so everybody experiences the steps differently. And that's why I started this channel, because I want people to hear my experience, strength, and hope, because I do a lot of service work at the rehab, and it's painful to see how much people struggle with the vocabulary, how many people struggle with the God concept, and just struggle with the terminology in general, which runs them away from the program. And for me, I'm grateful that I was so desperate and so willing to bring myself out of my suffering that I opened my mind and I looked at the vocabulary words in Alcoholics Anonymous through a different lens, through a different perspective, because I knew that if I didn't change my mindset towards Alcoholics Anonymous, I was never going to get help. And that's exactly what it means when they read how it works in Alcoholics Anonymous. Honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. And those 3 things that I learned from Alcoholics Anonymous has flowed into my life outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. Those are the first 3 things I look for when I meet new people. Are they being honest? Are they open-minded? And are they willing? And are they respectful? And so my point is that the things that I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been able to take outside Alcoholics Anonymous and apply it to different areas of my life, and to tailor it to what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and to still learn different things that will or could work for me by keeping an open mind. And so I highly suggest for anybody, you don't necessarily have to be an addiction to read or to do this workbook, Buddhism in the 12 Steps workbook. A person can replace addiction with emotions. It's all about seeing words differently. And so I hope this video can help anybody, you know, because I'm passionate about my recovery, because this is life or death for me. And it took me my entire life to finally realize that I am the only one who can save myself. It took me my entire life to realize that I have a choice. And when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I did not come in happy. I did not come in motivated. I had to drag myself back into the doors. I had zero motivation. My heart knew, and my heart wanted change. But my brain fought against me for the first 6 months. It was war with both sides of my brain. It was war. And by surrounding myself around people constantly that was reminding me and showing me how to change was the only thing that got me to where I am today, because I could not grow in isolation. It didn't matter how many books I read. It didn't matter, because I needed people. I needed people, and I had spent so much time in isolation that I had convinced myself I don't need people. Until this day, my brain can still try to convince me I don't need people. All I need is myself. But I know that's a lie, because I've put in the inner work and I've developed such a strong, secure, spiritual and emotional connection to myself that I'm able to be self-aware when my brain is lying to me. Before recovery, I had zero self-awareness of that. I allowed the lies to convince me that the lies were true. I had no tools. I had no people. And so steps 6 and 7, that's what that looked like for me. And that's what it still looks like for me today. You know, making a choice not to react. Also, making a choice to keep my mouth shut when I know nothing nice is going to come out my mouth. So for me, I'm trying to sum it up. Step 6 and 7 is about addressing my character defects, addressing my dysfunction and my survival traits, and me taking action to learn new healthy coping mechanisms and new healthy traits. And so, like I said, I hope these videos can be of service to people, because that's exactly why I created this channel. I had to start somewhere, and I started by taking action, and I started by believing that I deserved change and that I could change. Changing my self-talk is the only thing that got me through everything I've been through the past 3 years, and it's the only thing that still gets me through the things that I'm currently going through today.